Cloudfather here. We're continuing on with experimenting with some alternatives to layering graphics. We're using the new release 4 candidate from Lightburn, and we just had a new bug. The new bug is the move buttons don't work anymore. I can use the location icon to position the laser. As you can see, it's positioned in the center there, but the move command's no longer running. So that's something they need to look at. So we're getting ready to start the next burn. We have changed the DPI from 254 to do a cleaning pass with 179. I'm curious to see what the effects of that are, so we'll go ahead and start that now. So what we're doing here is, this is my test piece of materials, and you can barely see the engraving on it, but this piece is cast acrylic. It's 4 millimeters, and what we're going to do is we're going to prep this, and what I'm going to show is how to prepare the paint and then lay down very even layers. Okay, let's get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix, this is Prang, it's a tempera paint. It's about $2 at your local dollar store. And we're going to put a little bit here in the old paint mixing beaker. Of course, since this is a mad science show, we have to use beakers. It's tradition. So we put in about 15 milliliters there. And of course, paint gets everywhere. I should be wearing gloves, but this is safe paint. Now what we're going to do is take alcohol. This is 91%. I prefer actually to use ethanol. And we're going to basically mix it about 50-50. And you can see in the mixing here, it takes a while to actually break down all the garbage that they put on this. And so we'll let this stir for a minute. We keep going up by the sides to make sure that we're actually mixing it and getting the alcohol thoroughly combined with the tempera. And it typically takes 2 to 3 minutes of stirring. The reason why we're doing that is we're going to use a spray gun. I've done a lot of experimenting with airbrushes, but the problem is the airbrushes simply can't handle this thick of paint, whereas a $29 detail brush from Harbor Freight does a fabulous job and leaves a very, very flat coat, which for laser work is needed because lasers are sensitive to surface defects as small as 100,000ths of an inch. So now we've mixed that up. The next piece is to go grab a filter. And we're going to turn the compressor on, so we're going to put our air protection on here. We'll let that run for a minute. This is the Harbor Freight gun, $30. Really a decent little paint gun. They use it for doing cars, but it ends up being perfect for coating stuff. So we're going to run about 20 psi. We see it coming up now. What we do is we hold the air gun open, and then we adjust the air. And what we're looking for is just enough air pressure to get an even coat of paint. That should look pretty good there. Now the next part is never pour the mix directly into the bucket up here. You have to use a filter. Now we basically let the filter do its thing. I take a brush and rub it against the filter. That helps get the filtering done. The nice thing about alcohol tempered paint is it's not particularly toxic. It's what preschoolers use for doing finger painting. The use that we have for it here, of course, is getting a black surface, in this case for a transfer medium, so that we can use a diode laser to test engraving on cast acrylic plexiglass. So we're starting to get it all dissolved here. I apologize. It's difficult to do this and shoot this at the same time. But basically we're just pushing down into the filter and then pulling the brush up the sides of the filter to get all of the particulate, the heavy stuff, staying in the filter, but the actual material we want for coating through the filter and bonded with the alcohol. So we've got a half full tank here. I don't recommend putting more than that. You'll just waste it. Now we make sure our nozzle is all attached here. And then we test spray. So if you look at what it's doing, it's a very light coating. And so this is about the consistency you want. And remember, you're spraying alcohol and paint. And so this will dry very quickly. And the goal is to get it the thinnest possible even layer. And kind of go back and forth over it. Just basically ensuring that it's evenly wetting. And I did clean the surface of this with isopropyl alcohol about 15 minutes ago, so you always clean the material. Now you notice things are starting to darken, and this is what you're after. The problem with spray paint is you can't get it off plastic, you can't get it off wood. You can remove it from ceramic, but sometimes you actually have to grind it off. So using this approach, you get a much even coat. And the problem with spray paint is, spray paint, you never know what consistency it is chemically, and it's very temperature sensitive. It could be 40 degrees in here, and I'll try to use spray paint, the rattle can type, and it simply won't paint. It drips and runs and bubbles everywhere. But the tempera paint with the alcohol is very stable, even as low as 20 degrees, because this isn't heated in here. It's about 65 to 70 now. There's no difference in how the paint lays down. So now we can see we're really starting to get an even layer. And we'll just basically run it until we've deposited everything we have. And notice there's no runs. This is spraying really flat, and that's what you want. And notice I'm about 18 inches away from the surface, spraying at an angle. That way we get a very, very even coat. And that's the really key thing. Now this will take about 4.5 hours to dry, even though it really is dry to touch in just a few seconds. And if you're really in a hurry, you could take your hair dryer or your dryer for heating electronics. But the problem with that is you're going to mess the paint up. So it's best to let this dry naturally. Now you can see we have a very, very even coat, and that was what the objective was. So the next part is we need to clean this. Now basically you're going to take it, put it in the sink, you're going to run hot water through it, you're going to unscrew the barrel, you're going to take the little filter out, you're going to unscrew the spray part, clean that out. You're going to run hot water through here till you see it escaping out the end for about 2 or 3 minutes. And then when you come back, you plug it back in the air and you'll spray it clear. And I always spray it clear just before I clean it. And I move the lever back and forth so that we can get all of the passages freed up. So now we'll go clean it. We'll be back in a few. Okay, so our third pass is looking pretty good. Really, really nice definition. The Baltic birch is actually a very nice medium to work with. So this completes this one. I'm now just simply going to do a cut pass and cut it out. And then I'll probably mount it in something. But again, tinkering a lot with multiple layering, multiple power, multiple DPI and speed allows you to really control the burn. And so you don't see any dark burn marks in this. You just see a real nice browning of the material and extremely good depth. Okay, so what we've done is we basically put a cutout line. That's the red that we have here. We've also sent the quarter radius at 5 millimeters. So we're going to go ahead and let that cut. So cut settings, we're going to go with 450. And we're going to go with, say, 60 watts. And we're going to do 4 passes. We're going to increment 0.5 millimeters per pass. Now there was some discussion a day or so ago about how accurate or how precise you can make the Z-steps, and they basically have the same precision as the X and Y steps do. So you can go to 0.01 plus or minus 0.01. That's probably not particularly useful, but 0.5 is very useful. If you think of the size of the plasma ball that is typically being made, it's typically about 0.25 to 0.5 millimeters. That's, you know, how basically spherically large it is. So when you run a single pass, running at this power in 35 watt mode, not 70 watt mode, it gives you a pretty clean cut, and you can actually get a pretty accurate average depth across the cut. So that's how we're doing that. So we're going to go ahead and cue this up and let it do its thing. We turned off the image layer, and so now we're starting the cut layer. And one thing you'll see is all the smoke. I need to remember to close the top. Now the minute we close that top, you can see the forced air on the input side blowing all the gases completely away from the laser itself. And then the 8-inch exhaust vent on the opposite side is basically pulling all the air across. Now, if I wasn't using that much air pressure or that many cubic feet per minute, the flame detector would be going off constantly, stopping the laser. And the important thing is happening here with the filters on top and bottom and the blast shield on the bottom of the laser. It's protected. It's not getting any of this smoky material all over it. And this Baltic birch is actually a much cleaner material than most. So it does generate smoke, but that smoke is not getting anywhere near it. You can clearly see it blowing clear across the enclosure, and it's completely stopped anything going from the bottom of the laser and the surface going up the sides and being sucked back in. And then of course we have the 3-layer filter on the top and a 1-layer filter on the bottom. So that works out pretty good. Now we will have to clear up a little bit of charring, but this particular piece of wood has had shellac on both sides, and it's also had 2 coats of clear. So this will actually wash off pretty easily just with warm water. Well, it turned out pretty nice. It's always difficult to do graphic things, particularly on wood, because you have a lot of surface variation. Different woods have different amounts of glue in them. This is a birch plywood, of course, so it's 3 layers. But this one had a pretty thick top layer. Unfortunately, only one side of this particular birch is useful. That's the problem with B grade. If you get A grade, both sides are usually good. But generally, pretty good result. We got a nice clear picture of the moon, and I'm sure the granddaughter will enjoy that. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at the smoke trails. And as you can see, the fans on the left are intake fans. They're blowing air across the laser. The fan in the back, which is a really big 8-inch fan at 1600 CFM, is actually pulling all of the smoke across, so it's not affecting the laser. The other thing is no smoke is getting to the upper section of the laser because it never gets more than about halfway up the bottom filter section, because that air is pressurized and it's blowing at about 200 to 400 millimeters away from the side. So the triple filter on top keeps the fan and the heat sinks and the laser clean. The blast shield on the bottom deflects both the exhaust and the high pressure plasma that's 3,000 to 5,000 degrees flat across the bed. So it's never getting anywhere near the laser, and that saves the laser from all kinds of heat stress. Okay, our pass at 12,070 and 35 watt mode, 254 DPI. That's our little dragon image there. And as we can see, this being the first pass, that's really nice. Don't need to do a thing with that. It has beautiful detail. So all the work of the last couple days, really tuning into what works for this particular plywood has really paid off. Well, pretty spectacular result. Very pleased with that. That was a single pass at 1270 at 35 watt mode. The cut was done at 350 35 watt mode. And it's nice because at 50 we get almost no charring at the edges. So definitely a good combination. That'll go in my notebook. It's Cloudfather signing off.